Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another SkyPortal how-to. So today we're going to be taking a look at how to create default observation plans in SkyPortal. And so the idea here is that when you receive multi-messenger alerts from experiments like IceCube or Fermi or the gravitational wave network, sometimes you would like to be able to automatically create default plans based on some previous set of parameters. This is kind of complementary to when you have humans in the loop and you have people creating observation plans like we've shown in previous videos. And so let's go ahead and get started. And so if we're on our home page here, I just want to start out by highlighting. Of course, if you want to create a plan, you need an instrument to create that plan for. And so on the instrument page here, you can see all of the instruments that are built by default within the app. But let's go ahead and create a new instrument called CTF2 in this case. And so we'll make it an imager. That'll be optical. We'll give it the ZTF filters like you'd expect. And then we'll have the Palomar 1.2 meter telescope, which is not that one's here. And we can go ahead and choose a data file. And so so there's two things that you need really to make an instrument and to have SkyPortal know about where that instrument might look. And the first is what we refer to as a field data file. And so this is, for those of you who are familiar with GWEMOPT and from the GWEMOPT days, these are typically files that have some sort of field ID in the first column, right ascension in the second column, and then declination in the third column. And sometimes they have more information, but that's really fundamentally what they are. And so if you want to upload one of these files, I guess this one's too large, but it's files of this kind that you end up uploading. And so here's an example here from OAJ, which might look like the one that you might create again with some kind of ID, RA, and declination. And so we can go ahead and we'll load this file, oaj.tests, and then you can provide a region file. So AstroPy has these regions where you can define kind of complex shapes for fields of view. On the other hand, probably more common is to just represent the field of view of your telescope as a rectangle or a circle. And that's what we'll do for this purpose. So we have a rectangle here, and let's say it's 1 degree by 1 square degree, and then we can go ahead and submit and save that instrument. And so what this is going to do is this is going to create this instrument, which is great. And so down here, now we have ZTF2, it started to ingest the fields and so on. Now, one thing that I did not fill in was the API class name and API observation class name. So I forgot that, but we'll fix that in a second. So this API class name corresponds to if I have a telescope and I want to be able to trigger that telescope on sources like individual objects, and then the observation plan class name is for the creation of wide field or observation plans, either from Galaxy Catalog or doing wide field of view follow-up. And since I forgot to do this, let's go ahead and modify our instrument here, which I guess is at the bottom, and then we have a default what we call the MMA API that all telescopes can use. It just presents kind of all the default parameters we do for specific telescopes. So ZTF, for example, which I guess we can show off here, has a ZTF MMA API, which adds a few extra parameters. But today, we'll just show off the MMA API, and I go ahead and click submit, and then you can see it appears in the table here. Okay, so let's, if I want to be able to create plans, I need allocations on an instrument. We've talked about this pretty extensively in other videos, but we'll go back through it briefly here. We'll add a new allocation to a given program. Usually you would be making perhaps a new group for yourself to do this, and then making yourself admin. I will make myself PI, and then the number of hours allocated doesn't really matter for this purpose. It can be used to keep track of submissions, if you like, in the app. And then I'll go down and click the instrument in the app here. And this is also where, for example, you might add, this line, passwords and that kind of thing. Clearly not necessary for our purposes here, so I'm just going to go ahead and give myself this allocation, which we can see at the bottom here. Now, if I want to create a new observation plan, and so I have here, and let me just refresh this page. Okay, let's modify an allocation. Here we go. Okay, so I have my new instrument ZTF2 on the telescope I have, I'm PI and so on. And so the idea here is then I can make these default plans with the parameters that I want for given telescopes. And so, for example, if I want to assign specific notice types, I can, do this just for Fermi, for example. I can demand that it's, has a tag GRB or whatever, and, specific constraints on localization. Maybe I only want plans created for localizations less than 500 square degrees. We've talked pretty extensively about the options in the let's say human planning plans, but in general, just walking through this, so the filter strategies correspond to either block scheduling is where I try to schedule a bunch of observations in one filter and then another filter and another filter, whereas integrated scheduling sits on a field and rotates through the filters, goes to another field, rotates through the filters, and so on. Scheduling type, there's a variety of sort of scheduling algorithms. Usually I choose greedy, although there's other kind of fancier algorithms. For scheduling strategy, there's either tiling for wide field of view telescopes or galaxy targeting. Here I'm going to choose tiling. If you do want, you can choose your galaxy catalog and some parameters with that. You can set your exposure time. 300 seconds seems fine. I'm going to do the 3 ZTF filters, and you can set the maximum error mass, the cumulative probability in the sky map, the time difference between observations. So it's very common to only want to return to a field after 30 minutes or so to try to avoid asteroids or try to identify asteroids. We can also avoid the galactic plane, say up to 10 degrees, maybe do 15 degrees. You can put a threshold on the number of fields. Some of these others are more geared towards sort of when humans are planning. For example, RA slicing means that I can only select a subset of right ascensions. Perhaps if I want to actually make 2 plans, one for one part of the localization, one for another part of the localization. And then you give it a name, default plan ZTF2 in this case. I click submit, and then you can see that I have my default plan here. So that's basically it. So once you've gone through that process, as new events roll through, they will be created and given the filters that you set. Again, you don't have to set any filters at all. That's perfectly fine if you want plans created for all of the events. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful and look forward to seeing you next time.